You ready? Let's go. 2 Minute Daily Devo for Monday, July 4th. I'm in the Contemporary English Version today, and our verse of the day comes from the book of Galatians, chapter 5. Give you a little context here before we get to our verse of the day. Paul is talking to the followers of Jesus in Galatia, and he's talking about how they're having some issues bringing in new members to the faith. You see, the Jews obviously had different rules, and they were circumcised and they followed all these laws, and then there's the Gentiles who were not circumcised, and so they're coming in. The Jews are saying, hey, you need to get circumcised or else you're not a part of this. And Paul's coming in and saying, guys, hey, we're all free in Christ now. None of those laws apply like they did before. Now, we still want to do some of those Paul talks about, but he just says that we don't need to worry about you need to do this and you need to do this and all this stuff before you can say yes to Jesus. Basically, Paul says this. He boils down all the laws into two things: love God and love people, because that's what Jesus did. Jesus took all the laws that were in the Old Testament and he shrunk them down. There was over 600 of these laws. He took them down, boiled them down, and they were fighting. The Jews were fighting. The Pharisees were saying, hey, you need to do this, and they're not doing this. And Jesus boiled them all down to two things: love God and love people. And Paul here is doing the same thing. And then in verse 13, he is talking about the freedom that we have in Christ. And it's our verse of the day. Here's what it says: my friends, you were chosen to be free. So don't use your freedom as an excuse to do anything you want. Use it as an opportunity to serve each other with love. You see, what Paul is saying here is this, is that now we are free in Christ. Because Jesus came, the law is now not what we serve and what we're under anymore. Now we're under the freedom and the grace and the mercy that Christ brings. But what he's saying here is, don't use that freedom to bother other people or as an excuse to do anything, meaning this, that we want to do what Jesus tells us to do. We don't want to say, hey, look, I have freedom in Christ, so I can do pretty much anything I want because there's grace and forgiveness. No, we want to use this freedom that we experience in Christ, this freedom from sin, this freedom from guilt, this freedom from shame, to say, hey, I want to serve Jesus and I want to do what God has told us to do, which is this, what? Love God and love people. And he says that all the law can be summed up. It says this: love others as much as you love yourself. Because we want to now in Christ use this freedom that God has given us through Jesus, this freedom from sin and guilt, to love and serve other people. I want to encourage you today. Let's think about that. The guilt that we've been freed from because of Jesus Christ. And let's choose to do what Paul says: to love those around us, to give them and extend them that love that Jesus says that we should do. All right, that's it, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow.